Welcome back, everyone, to another reaction video as we continue our look at the Napoleonic Wars. This is Marengo, Napoleon's greatest comeback. It's one of the most recent videos from Epic History on this subject, so I'm excited to dive in. I will be adding this reaction to my entire reaction series playlist, which I think I largely have in chronological order, not of when I reacted to them, but in the order in which they appear in terms of the events. So I will pin the playlist in the comment section below so you can check it out and you can kind of scroll through and you'll see there's a lot of videos that go back pretty far, way earlier in the channel's life when the quality of my videos wasn't what it is today, but I think the information still holds up pretty well. Link is in the description to the original content so you can check it out without my commentary. Let's go ahead and dive into this one.
The 13th of June, 1800. Napoleon Bonaparte, first consul of France, has just pulled off one of history's boldest maneuvers. He has marched his army over the ice-covered Alps to arrive behind the Austrian army in Italy.
And that is obviously one of the most iconic paintings ever made of Napoleon. Napoleon was, among his many activities, a master of propaganda, of the visual, of understanding what it meant to show yourself in a certain way. And that's why he's worried about things like vote counts and things like that. And, you know, honestly, as first consul now, he's got a very strong political position. He really doesn't have to be out marching in the field or riding in the field at the head of an army, but he also recognizes that if he wants to hang on to what he's got or even expand his power, these are the kinds of things he's going to have to do.
He has captured Milan and defeated every enemy force he's met so far. Everything is going as planned. Now, Napoleon spreads his forces in a wide cordon to prevent the escape of General Melas's Austrian army. General Chabran and 3,400 men guard the River Po. General Lapointe, with 3,500 men, is sent to reinforce him. General Desaix, with 5,000 men, moves south to block the road to Genoa. This leaves Napoleon with just 22,000 men, advancing west onto the plains of Scrivia. But the first consul has been misled by the over-optimistic reports of scouts and spies. Melas is not planning to retreat. He has concentrated 30,000 veteran troops around the fortress city of Alessandria. They are well rested, supplied, and have a great superiority in cavalry and artillery.
And Napoleon has just come over the Alps and he split his force. This, again, this is one of those situations where if you're just looking at what we've just learned, it seems like everything should favor the Austrians here. But how many times have we said that before when it comes to Napoleon?
And they are preparing to attack. Oblivious to the looming threat, on the 13th of June, General Victor and his 2 divisions lead the French advance on Alessandria. In heavy rain, his men drive a small Austrian rearguard from the village of Marengo back towards a fortified bridgehead on the Bormida River.
I've said this before, but how many of these battles take place with a river right smack either in front of or behind the defending force? And then they have to fall back and there are bridges involved. I mean, the strategic choice of these battlefields is all very intentional.
But the French find the crossing heavily defended.
Yep.
So, soaked and exhausted, with darkness falling, they halt the pursuit. Weeks ago, Napoleon had predicted that the decisive battle of the campaign would be fought on this very ground, the plain east of Alessandria. But now, he is convinced that Melas will not risk battle. What he and his men cannot see beyond the Bormida, because they have lit no campfires, are 30,000 Austrians assembled for an assault. Within hours, Napoleon will discover that his army is fighting for its life.
Wouldn't be the last time, and Napoleon has gotten himself out of more difficult situations than this one. As we approach the decisive moment, only courage, bravery, and steadiness can punish a recklessly advancing enemy. The Austrian order of the day.
Dawn, the 14th of June. Napoleon's forces are spread across 8 miles of open country and scattered vineyards. General Victor's 2 divisions are the farthest west, holding Marengo and the main road. Behind him, General Lannes and several cavalry regiments. Napoleon, with the Consular Guard and Monniere's division, is yet further back.
It's a strange setup, and it only makes sense because Napoleon does not think that he's going to be attacked. And so he's probably waiting to bring up the bulk of his force, or he's trying to figure out what his next move is going to be. I'm curious to know what the thought process was in this, if not that he didn't expect anything to happen.
Melas's forces are concentrated west of the Bormida, behind the Austrian bridgehead. His chief of staff, General Anton von Zach, has planned a 2-pronged assault. General Ott's division will cross the river and advance north to Castel Ceriolo. Melas, with the bulk of the army, will attack directly up the main road. On a clear morning, at 8 AM, the Austrians begin their advance. French outposts are driven back. At the Pedrabona farm, Gardan's division comes under heavy bombardment.
Now, if you're Napoleon, or at least as I'm looking at this map, what I'm thinking to myself is that by having a smaller force up front, and just like Napoleon likes to do where he spreads his guys out, you start to get a sense of what the enemy's plan is as you start to see forces stacking up. And if you can slow them down and hold them at bottleneck positions, it gives you time to maneuver your guys into position and maybe get what is a very difficult position and turn it into an advantageous one.
He falls back to join the rest of Victor's troops, which are deploying behind the Fontenone stream.
Okay, I'm
this
starting to see
narrow,
it.
steep-sided waterway runs the length of the battlefield and is swollen by recent rain. The only easy crossing is a small wooden bridge at the main road. And on the far bank, Victor's men are shielded by trees and sturdy farmhouses. As the Austrians approach the Fontenone, they are hit by a hail of musket fire.
All right.
Scores go down as they struggle to cross the stream. General Hadig leads a charge, but falls mortally wounded. After several failed attacks, the Austrians fall back with heavy losses. North of Victor's position, General Bellegarde's brigade crosses the Fontenone around 11 AM. But General Lannes' division takes up position on Victor's flank. They drive off Bellegarde and re-establish the line along the stream.
There you go. Yep. This is now you've got a superior force under the Austrians, but they're bottlenecked back here, and they can't take advantage of their numbers. Napoleon turned an attack against superior forces that were in a strong defensive position into a defense where he drew the enemy out. It's actually pretty brilliant when you think about it, whether it was intentional or not.
It is now a hot, humid summer's day, as Austrian attacks continue and fighting rages along the Fontenone. More and more Austrian cannon are pulled up and begin to pulverize the French line. Throughout the morning, Melas's army is hindered by narrow crossing points and marshy ground. General Zach's failure...
Here's my question. When are the reinforcements arriving for Napoleon? Because you know that's what he does. How close are they? Are they close enough to make a difference? Or is he going to have to fight with what he's got? Is he going to have to send this reserve right here, up here to defend Castel Cariolo against any kind of a flanking attack?
To anticipate these bottlenecks has cost several hours. Nevertheless, by noon, the Austrians have 30,000 men and 92 guns in position.
Those guns are huge for them.
They still only face Lannes and Victor's tiring divisions, 16,000 men and 16 guns. The French urgently need reinforcements.
Yep.
But as the Austrians begin their next attack, Napoleon and the rest of the army are nowhere to be seen. The greatest danger is on the French right, where General Ott's division has occupied Castel Cariolo virtually unopposed, and now threatens Lannes' flank. Then the Austrians find a gap near the French centre and rush 3 battalions across the Fontenone. Around the same time, 1,500 Austrian dragoons circle around the French left.
You see how he's got all the cavalry on the flank. That's what you do in Napoleonic warfare, right? You have your guns and your infantry in the middle, and you send your cavalry around the flanks. I mean, it's not just Napoleonic warfare. That's a strategy that goes back millennia.
Charged and routed by General Kellermann's heavy cavalry. The Austrians do succeed in taking La Stortigliona farm, threatening Victor's left. An Austrian cavalry charge over the Marengo bridge is also repulsed by Kellermann. But the odds are too great. Some French units are completely out of ammunition. They have just a handful of cannon.
How's he going to win this?
And their line is breaking. Facing encirclement, Victor's divisions are the first to give way, losing 400 men captured in Marengo. Another 300 French soldiers are left behind in Casabianca, where they hold out stubbornly for several hours. Covered by the 96th Demi Brigade and Kellermann's watchful cavalry, Victor's division retreats half a mile to Spinetta and its surrounding vineyards. The Austrians pour over the Fontenone. Lannes pulls back to maintain the French line. The heroes of Montebello are on the brink.
Where's Napoleon? Suddenly a murmur of joy and hope rose from the ranks. The men of battles and victories appeared. Bonaparte.
When the Austrian attack began, Napoleon was 7 miles away, at his headquarters in Torre Garofoli. Although he could hear the distant thunder of cannon, he did not grasp its full significance and remained focused on blocking the Austrians' escape. Only at 11 a.m. did reports arrive to reveal the gravity of the situation. Napoleon knows there is not a moment to lose. He scrawls an order to Desaix,
there you go,
who he sent to cut off the Austrian retreat, and is now
your side is retreating. You're losing the battle. And what's Napoleon's first instinct? Cover their retreat. Cover the enemy's retreat for when we defeat them. This guy, he just thinks differently.
Now 4 miles away. I had thought to attack the enemy. They have attacked me. Come in the name of God, if you still can. He sends the same order to General Lapointe. Then he races to the front with his only reserves, Monniere's division and the Consular Guard.
I mean, this is such a common theme of Napoleon's battles, is being spread out and then being able to rapidly concentrate and turn the tide even when he's losing initially because he's outnumbered. Yeah, you notice these guys up here forming square because they've got cavalry coming at them.
By 3 p.m, Lannes and Victor have retreated almost a mile. Austrian cavalry shadow their withdrawal, forcing the French to stay in close formation. Austrian guns send round shot crashing through the packed ranks. Remarkably, the French battalions are still holding. When Napoleon arrives, he sees the main threat is on the right, where Ott is poised to turn the French flank.
Yep.
To counter this, he sends Monniere's division to Castelceraiolo, forcing Ott to draw off troops. But that still leaves General Schellenberg's 4,000-strong division. So Napoleon commits his ultimate reserve, 900 men of the elite Consular Guard.
These are not the guys you send in unless the situation is desperate.
The Guard repels enemy cavalry and holds its own in a close-range firefight with Austrian infantry, buying time for the rest of the army to fall back. Napoleon describes them as his granite redoubt. The legend of the Guard is being born. But they are now isolated and about to be overwhelmed. When Austrian dragoons hit their exposed flank and rear, the redoubt crumbles. The Guard is forced to flee. Some surrender, many are cut down. By the end of the day, the Guard has suffered more than 50% casualties. With the retreat of the Guard, Napoleon has no more cards left to play. The French army retreats steadily through the vineyards, battered by constant Austrian artillery fire. Casualties and stragglers mean there are just 6,000 men left holding the French line.
This reminds me a lot. Obviously, my brain always goes to the American Civil War, and these Civil War generals in the American Civil War were trained on Napoleonic tactics. This reminds me so much of the Battle of Shiloh, where initially a smaller Union force who is camped out and waiting for another army to arrive is overwhelmed by the Confederates, who advance, and the Union keeps falling back, and many of the men fall back in disarray. These units dissolve, there's nothing left of them, but Grant is able to build a defensive line on Pittsburgh Landing, and then the reinforcements start arrive into the night, and then he's able to counterattack the next day.
General Mélas is satisfied that the French have been beaten. Having been injured in a fall from his horse, he now hands over command to his Chief of Staff, General Desaix. Then he returns to Alessandria to draft a report describing his great victory.
That also parallels Shiloh. The Confederates thought they had it won. It was just a mop-up operation the next day. Their commanding general is actually killed in one of the attacks and is no longer present, and so now it passes to another guy.
But he has underestimated French resilience and the fickle fortunes of war.
This battle is completely lost, but there is time to win another. Desaix to Napoleon. Optimism, love it. This is like Grant at Shiloh telling Sherman that night. Sherman says, well, we've had the devil's own day. And Grant says, yep, lick 'em tomorrow, though. I mean, there's so much that I see paralleled here.
General Louis Desaix, just 31 years old, brave, brilliant, and modest. Napoleon describes their friendship as one his heart has for no other. That morning, his orders were to lead Boudet's division, 5,000 strong, across the Scrivia River to cut off the Austrian escape. But the recent rain had raised the water level and delayed his crossing. When Desaix heard the sound of battle to the north, he'd halted his men and sent a courier to get news. Napoleon's desperate order to return does not reach him until midday.
So this is smart though, because he's taking initiative to say, hey, I hear the sound of guns, I know I have orders, but do you still want me to stick to those orders, or is there a change? I mean, taking initiative, but also recognizing the chain of command. I like it.
Immediately, he about turns his division and marches to the sound of the guns. Desaix arrives on the eastern edge of the battlefield at 5 p.m. to find the French army in full retreat. Napoleon is at San Giuliano, 5 miles east of Marengo, where thousands of wounded soldiers are gathered. The mood is grim and despondent. But news of Desaix's arrival spreads like an electric shock. Here they are! Here they are! The troops exclaim. Napoleon is rejuvenated. We have gone back far enough today, he tells his troops. You know that my custom is always to sleep on the field of battle. The Austrian army is advancing on all fronts, but they are now scattered and disordered, and they have diverted forces north and south in an attempt to encircle the enemy.
And your commanding officer's gone.
What's more, General Desaix has advanced to lead the pursuit, handing overall command to General Keim.
You're probably getting tired of me saying this, but the parallels with the Battle of Shiloh continue. The reason that General Johnston, who was in command of the Confederate Army, ends up being killed is that he rides out. You know, he's exactly right here. The commanding general is supposed to stay back so he can do command and control for the entire army. If you're at the front, you're not in command of the army. So Albert Sidney Johnston is one of 2 4-star generals in the Confederate Army at Shiloh. So he advances to the front recklessly, hands over all command to PGT Beauregard, who is the one who's in charge of sending troops where, and they get it wrong. The commander gets killed. The guy in back is not following the plan. It's just a disaster. And you can see here how Napoleon has command and control. The Austrians don't have that, and sometimes that makes the difference.
Several other Austrian generals have been wounded. Chains of command have become dangerously muddled.
You gotta slow down and
using Desaix's
organize.
Fresh troops, Napoleon now prepares a last-ditch counterattack with all the supporting forces he can rally. General Marmont concentrates all the available guns, 18 of them, to blast the Austrians. Then, with the 9th Light Demi Brigade in the lead, the attack begins.
It's amazing to me that Napoleon is attacking, but this is the mindset by a lot of generals, is that when you attack, you have the advantage.
The rapid fire of these experienced skirmishers staggers the Austrian advance. General Desaix orders up more artillery and sends forward his elite grenadiers. The 9th Light falls back. To the Austrians, it seems the French are retreating once more. Suddenly, they are blindsided by the rest of Desaix's fresh troops, emerging without warning through the vineyards. Desaix joins the 9th Light and leads them forward in a bayonet charge. At this moment, he is shot through the heart and killed instantly. Seeing their commander fall, the 9th Light cries, "Vengeance!" and surges forward. General Kellerman thunders in with 400 heavy cavalry. They crash into the Austrian left flank. To add to the chaos, an Austrian ammunition wagon is hit and detonates in a tremendous explosion. The combined effect is devastating. Panic spreads, morale collapses.
This entire battle is hinging on morale and command and control. That's 100% what this is about.
In just a few minutes, hundreds of Austrians lay down their arms and surrender.
Including Zach.
Thousands more flee, spreading terror among troops in the rear. General Zach, trapped in the rout, is among the 2,000 Austrian prisoners.
What a turnaround. The charge rang out everywhere. Each of us turned around and ran forward. We did not shout anymore. We roared. This is one of those battles that these French soldiers are going to go home and tell their if any of them survive the Napoleonic Wars, that is, are going to go home and tell their grandchildren about, I was there at Marengo. I saw it. I was part of that charge. We rounded up 2,000 Austrians. Napoleon saved the day once again.
In an instant, the entire momentum of the battle has swung 180 degrees. Thousands of French troops who'd been retreating moments ago stop and join the attack. As the Austrian centre collapses, General Ott's division becomes dangerously exposed. His men soon join the rest of the army in their race to escape.
Where's your commanding general? What's he doing?
Later that evening, General Murat adds the coup de grace, launching a final French cavalry charge that seals victory and drives the enemy back to their bridgehead. The Battle of Marengo was one of the greatest comebacks of the Napoleonic era. Thoroughly defeated by mid-afternoon, the French are completely victorious by nightfall. But it has been an exceptionally costly affair. The French lose a quarter of their army as casualties. The Austrians, more than a third. Napoleon himself contributed little to the victory. If not for the skill of his officers, the steadiness of his troops, and above all, Desaix's last-minute arrival, he would surely have been defeated.
Yeah, but this is what you should be doing as a commanding general. You want to have, first of all, strong subordinates who are able and capable, and Napoleon certainly has that. But you also want to put your army in position strategically to where they can win a victory. And so, yeah, Napoleon might not have been making the big decisions on the battlefield that win or lose tactically, but strategically he has set them up for victory.
The taste of victory is soured further when Napoleon learns that his friend Desaix has been killed. He tells his secretary, "Yes, Bourrienne, I am satisfied. But Desaix, what a triumph this would have been if I could have embraced him tonight on the field of battle."
I'm always curious about such things. I wonder where Desaix is buried today. I'm going to guess probably one of the big cemeteries in Paris. Well, as it turns out, he was originally buried in Milan until 1805, and then he was moved to the St. Bernard Hospice, that same place where they had come through the Alps, even though Desaix wasn't with the army that came through the Alps. Apparently it's now an unmarked grave. There was a tomb, a big fancy monument that was set up for him, but it was subsequently moved, and so his grave is no longer marked. So interesting that that's where he's at.
Instead, he dines alone. According to legend, on a hastily improvised dish of local ingredients that becomes known as chicken Marengo. General Melas, shaken by his unexpected defeat, is unsure how to react. Some of his officers urge him to continue fighting. Others advise him to escape. French forces are closing in from all directions. Hoping to buy time, Melas proposes a ceasefire to bury the dead.
Of course he does.
Napoleon refuses, unless Melas is also willing to discuss terms for the Austrian evacuation of northwest Italy.
Always thinking. Napoleon's always a step or two ahead. He knows what Melas is trying to do here. He's not going to let him do it unless it's an advantageous situation for Napoleon.
For bargaining leverage, the old Austrian general accepts. Over the following days, Melas and Berthier negotiate a comprehensive armistice. In exchange for safe passage back to Austria, Melas agrees to evacuate Piedmont, Genoa, and Lombardy.
Wow. All as a result of a battle that he was losing.
Will once more dominate northern Italy. Napoleon has achieved his victory and cemented his position as France's new head of state. What's more, the near miraculous manner of his victory assures him more than ever of his own special destiny.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, this is a guy who is a master of propaganda, of using things to his advantage, and he does that.
The gods of war and fortune are with him. What limit can there be to his accomplishments? That winter, Moreau inflicts a second crushing defeat on the Austrians.
Wow, the Army of the Rhine.
At the Battle of Hohenlinden. Defeated in Italy, and now Germany too, Austria finally sues for peace. The subsequent Treaty of Lunéville sees the French frontier advance to the River Rhine. In Italy, French client republics are officially recognized by Austria, and the following year, France annexes Piedmont. France is now larger and stronger than at any time since the reign of Charlemagne 1,000 years ago. She has just one remaining enemy: Great Britain. In 1801, British victories at Alexandria and Copenhagen drive home the fact that France cannot challenge Britain at sea, nor abroad.
And once again, I mean, this is the story of the British throughout history, is being an island is going to save them, and being a great naval power is going to save them, and it's going to doom France. I mean, this is the one enemy France can't overcome.
Britain has seen her continental allies defeated, and Russia is now actually threatening war. She has no prospect of building another coalition to challenge France on land. Both sides are exhausted by war. The result? After months of negotiation, peace. For the first time in Europe in 10 years. How long it will last, nobody is quite sure. Do you think you could replicate Napoleon's glory at Marengo? Perhaps your command could have won a more decisive French victory, or maybe saved the day for the Allies. Well, with Wargame Design Studios' campaign Marengo, you have the...
Yeah, those John Tiller games are always really good. I might have to dive into that one on my trip to Ireland tomorrow. Okay, I guess we're going to wrap it up right there. It's just got the ad there at the end. So, as always, the legend grows, and another great victory for Napoleon. Of course, it's not always going to be that way, as you can see in the later battles that we talk about in the playlist, which is pinned down in the comment section below. Go ahead and check out Epic History TV as well. Subscribe to them, give them a like. I don't think anybody does it better when it comes to Napoleonic Wars. Thanks for watching.